Hey, everybody. Welcome back once again to the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. I'm your host, Gene Jackson, and thank you, as always, for joining us. And to get things rolling, let's welcome my co-host this week. First up, he's the man who says he's the Shawn Michaels to Richard Mulligan's Marty Jannetty of the P3 Rockers. It's the Nightmare Nephew himself. It's Josh Briley. Josh, what's up, man?
How's it going, Gene? How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, How about yourself?
I'm awesome. Been a good
Fired
weekend.
up to talk about some USWA.
I'm ready to rock and roll, baby.
All right. Well, to do that, we'll talk about where your tag team partner is here in a minute. But joining us this week, once again, for the third consecutive week in a row, one more punch on that card and he gets a free Subway sandwich. He's the owner, founder, and president of STSPod.club. Spoiler alert, it's Brian Trammell. Brian, what's up?
What's up, Brother Gene, Brother Josh? How's life treating you guys?
Awesome, man. How you doing?
I'm a top this morning. We're on top of Gene, Josh. We're tops.
Up top like you're supposed to.
I'm used to being a bottom.
Right,
Whoa, there we go. I feel more. I feel better
Make
now.
you feel-
So thank
make
you. I
feel at
appreciate
home
it. I
we're
think you
doing
lost
pretty
his
well.
train of thought.
but none of us are doing as well as our buddy Richard, as he is off on his alternative lifestyle cruise this week. I think he refers to it as his gaycation, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we got a shot of him out on his cruise. Let me find it. He sent it to me and Josh the other day. Check him out.
Pontotoc Bears, right? That's where
He's
yeah,
clearly having the time of his life. He's kind of making the same face Mickey Gilley was making at the fabulous Jeff Jarrett.
He's like,
he's not real sure about this.
Yep, I love Mexico. Mm-hmm. See, this more than likely is where they ported in Mexico, and he's sitting on a cartel-controlled resort right now. He doesn't have to worry about being extorted by local officials. He pays the fucking bartender $20 and he can drink until there are no more bottles. And that's him. That's why he's wearing the sunglasses, because his fucking eyes were probably so bloodshot from just trying to live. His liver's thumping like a 12-inch speaker. And that's why he's like, and he said, Gene can stamp this. He said, I'm trying to smile in this.
Yes. That's exactly what he said. He said, I was trying
Maybe
to smile. And I said, oh, thank God. I thought you were having a stroke.
He might be being a bitch. Remember that vacation he talked about where he was a bitch because he had car problems? He was a bitch the whole vacation. So
no. They had someone meet them there on vacation.
At Mexico?
And they were in a certain part of Florida.
Oh, okay.
And another friend kind of like came hours away, from hours
to
away
see him, yeah.
And they're sitting by this is a nice hotel they're in. They're sitting by the pool, sunny day, beautiful kids playing, all that stuff. And he's sitting over there with sunglasses, pouting on his phone, checking rates and shit for rent-a-cars, being all mad. He won't drink. And the guy's like having to go over there and play, like, come on, man, just cheer up. Nope. He pouted the whole day, dude.
I think that's what he's doing right there in that photo. He's pouting about something. Probably couldn't get the taco he wanted or something. There you
go. I wish we could say the line that he said in that group text. We can't say it here on the main show. If you want to check out our Patreon, if somebody reminds me afterwards, I'll tell Brian what he said in the chat. But it cracked me up so much I had to reference it again last night when we were talking about a couple things. But So before we get going on the show, I want to take a moment real quick here, if I may. Brian, I know these aren't the kind of toys you're into, but most people who listen to this show or P3 Radio know that Josh, Richard, and myself are all huge nerds who collect wrestling figures. And so we're excited to announce that our good buddy Del Rios has a cool new Spellbinder figure coming out.
I saw that.
Watching the video cast, you can see it on the screen right now. If you're not watching the video cast, head on over to our Facebook group. We've got some pictures up over there on our page, as well as the USWA Universe Facebook group. But it's a good looking figure. It would look great in your collection. Plus you'd be supporting one of the good brothers, if you will, in the wrestling business, Del Rios. What a great guy. And speaking of Del, he wanted me to let everybody know that he is taking bookings for 2025. He can wrestle. He can do signings, public appearances, speaking engagements. you name it. And Dale does have a very interesting story.
Oh yeah,
his life in before wrestling and what led him to wrestling, and the fact that the first match he ever had in a wrestling ring was a dark match for Monday Night Raw. I mean, how many people can say that? So
it's crazy.
If you
pressure.
Yeah, man. So if you want to get in touch with Dale, you can email me, genejackson95@gmail.com, and I'll get you in touch with him if you want to schedule an appearance with him. If you want to get the figure, you can go to rushfigures.com. They're taking pre-orders right now. So get you a figure ordered, and while we're plugging people who are taking bookings, don't forget the Memphis Mafia are on their 2025 35-year-old anniversary. 35 years of the Memphis Mafia in wrestling. Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Tommy Wildfire Rich are available for bookings, wrestling, signings, conventions, whatever you need. They got you covered. You can reach out to them.
They just announced they're going to be not far from my house. So Wynn, Arkansas on February the 1st, I think. So not far from Jonesboro, Arkansas.
That's right. Good thing you smooth things out. But if you want to get in touch and try to get them booked, you can email DougGilbertPodcast@outlook.com, and we will get you hooked up with Doug and get that ball rolling. So anything else we need to cover, guys, before we jump into this week's episode of USWA Championship Wrestling from July 24th, 1993, as we are doing the 34th episode of the Retro Wrestling Review. We are rolling right along, guys. So if you guys are ready, we'll get into it. The show opens, as always, with Dave and Corey, who let us know what to expect today. And we learn that PG-13 are returning from exile today. And apparently, just like how their Phantom Babyface turn happened, they are now once again heels with no explanation because they were announced as teaming with Disco Inferno. So this is the kind of nonsensical shit that drove me nuts as a kid, because I would sit and worry, what did I miss? I've been watching every week. How are they bad guys? I had to have missed something. And I start, and you can't jump on the internet, so I just have to wait till like I seen a magazine in the store and flip through there and see if maybe there was something there.
Well, and then there was no, unless you were really reading the kayfabe sheets, there was no explanation even given the magazines. I mean, every once in a while, Bill After would do something. I remember him doing a big story about Lawler. He thought Lawler was going heel, and Lawler didn't go heel, and it was a heel story. And Lawler told me, he said they just make up all that stuff to sell issues. So,
I mean, did stuff like that bug you guys, or was I just a kid that overthought things? Because that kind of stuff bugged me. The lack of continuity with things, it drove me crazy.
Yeah, it used to really get on my nerves, but I always would deduce, well, maybe it happened like in Humboldt on Thursday night or whatever. Maybe something happened and we just didn't know because we weren't there. Like, I knew that shows happen almost every single night, just from the promotion. So, like, I figured it was something like that.
Yeah, either way, it's good to see Jamie and Wolfie back here on the show, and we'll be talking about them a little more later on. But after we come back from that initial break, we go right into our first match of the day. It's Brian Christopher with Miss Simpson versus, in the past, they've called him Aaron Hatchett. Today, we're alternating between calling him Eron Hatchett and sometimes Aaron Hatchett, and sometimes something in between those two. Dave Brown here lately has been all over the place with names, kind of like the whole Colin Scott thing, who, by the way, it seems that Colin Scott, or whatever name you want to call him, is officially out of the picture. But I'm sure we'll mention that a little bit later on when we go over the card. But Hatchet looked good early on here. He got some drop kicks in on Brian. Brian was selling for him. It looked like it was going to be a pretty competitive match, but that was pretty short-lived before Brian cut him off and took over. And after a couple minutes of Brian working over Hatchet, this is where things start to get interesting, because here on the podcast, we gave everybody some background on Miss Simpson when she first showed up. When she debuted, we talked about the fact that she's actually Tony Adams, ex-wife of Gentleman Chris Adams. That has never been uttered on USWA TV. She's just been Miss Simpson. She started out the nanny of Brian Christopher, gifted to him by Scotty Flamingo / Johnny Polo. And that's all we've really said about her. So all of a sudden, Chris Adams comes walking out into the studio, and he goes up to Miss Simpson at ringside, and he's questioning her about what she's doing here. Dave Brown and Corey Macklin start to acknowledge who he is. Brian stops wrestling to come over and acknowledge his presence as well and tell him to leave. Miss Simpson just seems distraught by it all. And based on some of those domestic violence charges against Adams, that's understandably so, right? I mean,
right. I was feeling uncomfortable when he was yelling at her. I was like,
exactly.
Well, so I kind of had like two schools of thought, or just two experiences rather, because like I mentioned before, I kind of watch these shows and remember it as a kid from that perspective, and then as I'm watching this. 1993's me is like, that's his wife. He has the right to try to get her back and do whatever he has to do to win his woman back. She just needs to, go with it. And then my 2024 self kind of creeps back. I was like, no, dude, that's not okay. It's never been okay. Just because you thought it was okay, that doesn't make it right.
Yeah, this is a completely different angle with 2024 eyes than what anybody was looking at it like in 1993.
And Chris Adams, dude, he walked up in there looking like he stepped off the boat from being with Richard Lee, dude.
Yeah. I expect Richard's got to sitting out there in the car waiting on him, like, hey, get your bitch and come on, we got to go, or I'm going to be mad when you come back. If you're more than 5 minutes, I'm going to be out here pissed.
Yeah.
Hey, I would just want to note again, Brian Christopher gets a babyface reaction from the girls. Did you hear that? It's getting louder every week. The girls are screaming and carrying on when he walks out.
Yeah, it was pretty deafening this week. I'm sitting there thinking, yep, he's going to PG-13 it soon. There's no way he's missing out on too many photo ops and selling stuff.
Yeah, but he's our top heel, so it's going to be interesting to see how we can navigate that as we move forward. I mean, or at least if not our top heel, our most consistent heel. We've rotated out the other pieces, but he's been the most consistent one. But
yeah, and honestly, other than Bert, he's about the nastiest heel that you have as well.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
just the way he handles Miss Texas alone is pretty appalling, even by those standards back then. But he goes back to trying to finish off Hatchet while Chris Adams continues to question Miss Simpson, and the commentators speculate about what's happening and repeats some of what's being said by Adams. And then here's a couple of looks. If you're watching the video, there he is. He rolls up. Brian's looking back. Now he's pointing like, get out of here. I'm banging her now. I mean, that's my manager. There you see it's escalating, and still Brian and
you said
Frank
you were
Morrell.
going to the grocery store. What happened?
I've been starving ever since. So finally, they make their way over here to the desk, and that's when things really pick up. So let's check out a little bit of this interaction with Chris Adams and who we know to be his wife, Miss Simpson.
I just want to know, what are you doing here?
I don't want you to leave.
I'm going to leave you alone. I want you to come and talk.
No, I don't want to talk.
I don't know what's going on over here.
Hey,
Eddie Marlin, get out here. He's harassing the wrestlers. Eddie Marlin, get security and get him out of here. He's no way to wrestle the wrestlers. I don't know who you think you are, but that's just USWA wrestling. You're not supposed to be out here. Get him out of here. Get out of here.
I'll tell you who it is. The gentleman Chris Adams is who it is.
I don't need to get out of here. This is my wife. And if it's my wife, then I'm after you, brother. I don't know what you're doing with my wife, but I want to take her out right now, and I want to talk to her. So just why don't you go and take a hike? Oh, it's your wife, huh? It's your wife, huh? Well, it doesn't look like she wants to be with you. So why don't you just get out of here? Why don't you just get out of here, huh? What do you think you're doing here today, huh? What do you think you're doing here? Somebody get him out of here. Somebody get him out of here. He is harassing her. Get him out of here.
see that one coming when Christopher came over here and started yelling.
Maybe it's just me, but them first couple punches look stiff as shit right on his
did.
jaw.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like somebody had been feeding him information that had happened in the previous weeks.
Yeah.
Well, I wrote down Miss Texas brought Chris Adams in to beat the shit out of Brian Christopher is what I wrote down. So that's the way it felt. It's like it was real stiff at first. And, you know, this is one of the things that makes Memphis wrestling to me is putting in, and Lawler's talked about this before, putting in the real stuff. You know, you put a little bit of shoot stuff in there, which has always been done in Memphis wrestling way before Vince McMahon, Vince Russo did it, doing shoot stuff. But, you know, I mean, like opening up the back of the studio and busting like Rick Rude did to Lawler's car, you know, Lawler getting run over by a car. All that real stuff is what I really liked about Memphis wrestling.
And we really hadn't had anything like that to sink our teeth into for a while here that felt like there was any stakes or reality or anything, you know, really heated until now. So I was kind of decided. I knew this was coming up. I just didn't remember when. So when Chris Adams comes strolling out, I was like, oh, here we go. As JR would say, business is about to pick up, you know. And, you know, if I'm a fan who has only watched Memphis wrestling all my life, and I have no idea who Chris Adams is, when I see this guy come out in his short pants and his loafers and, you know, his fanny pack, I got to be wondering, you know, is Brian really in that much trouble? And then he slugs him and hits him. I mean, just pegs him on the freaking jaw. I got to figure maybe that fanny pack was a little bit of a shoot. You know, he hopes Tony hears some of them pills rattling around in there and she decides it's time to come home, you know.
It kills me because I was a huge Chris Adams fan from World Class, and all the shit that you hear about him, you know, Gino and Chris were like the best heels ever. And then when you started hating on the Von Erichs, that was the guys you really liked. It was hard to like the Freebirds except for Terry Gordy for me. But I really did like Chris and Gino. They were big fans of both of those guys. And then you hear all this shit about Chris Adams afterwards, you know?
Yes,
yeah. Watching that,
hardly hear anything good.
I think it was one of those World Class documentaries on YouTube. And there's an interview with like a guy that either knew the situation or the guy that killed him. I can't remember which one it is, but he kind of details what type of person Chris was there at the end. And it was just like, oh man, that's why I don't like per se, like, unless it's just a superstar meeting guys now, because that one impression can ruin like your whole view of everybody, just that one interaction. So yeah, I really just I don't really try anymore because I just don't like seeing the real people.
The more you hear about the real Chris Adams, it's hard to like him or be a fan of him. I mean, it's like in that Dark Side of the Ring episode, you know, they talked at length with the guy that ended up killing him, and you hear about everything that led up to it, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm surprised you didn't shoot him before then, you know. And then the stories over the, like, you know, Kevin Von Erich, different people telling about him freaking out on that plane, you know, and punching out that stewardess or whatever. Oh, he just freaked out, man. His eyes turned black, and he was crazy. Like, damn, when you freak out Kevin Von Erich, dude, you're out there.
Yeah.
He's already.
No, I took pictures of Kevin Von Erich one night in Jonesboro, y'all, and you will not believe this, but he told me he had pink eye. Can you believe that? Pink eye.
Yeah, I got pink eye in both of my eyes. That's why they look like this. That's why I'm acting like this. It's kind of like a brain infection. Oh, man. I heard like he was one of the wildest Von Erichs too, and he lasted the longest. That is insane.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. Yep. He's the last man standing out of that bunch. He's just too crazy to take himself out, I guess. But anyway. After the break, we see the clip again from 2 weeks ago where the Vampire Warrior wrestled Lawler. Didn't win the unified title, but by God, he took the belt anyway. And then we get a recap of last week's shenanigans that led to them stealing Jeff Jarrett's USWA Southern Heavyweight title belt. which some could, argue that he did Jeff a favor taking that belt off his hands. Honestly, I was hoping that Vampire Warrior was going to do the old gimmick where he'd take that belt, throw it off a freaking bridge somewhere and to a river, and we'll never see it again. But so far, that doesn't seem to be what's going to happen. But then we get around to seeing footage from last Monday night where the Warrior managed to actually win the Southern title belt away from Jeff Jarrett, thanks to some help from Bert and the gang. So now I guess he has to wear that monstrosity around. So I guess he got what he deserved. I don't know, but let's take our first podcast commercial break here, and then when we get back, we'll hear from the King and get rolling a little further into today's show.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Sheik, Jarrett, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
So thanks to our sponsors, but I had to use that for our bumper today to see that punch from Chris. Chris,
we talked about this before, but it might be that's just the way Chris works because he's used to working the Von Erichs, who are stiff as fuck during that time too. So yeah, maybe it.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So Lawler comes out and he cuts a promo about Bert Prentice and Vampire Warrior being common thieves. He says that he'll teach them that crime doesn't pay, and he goes on a tangent about how anyone who has ever had someone come into their home and steal their property and has felt violated the way he did can relate to him right now. And I swear I felt deja vu watching this promo. Did he not cut like this damn near exact promo verbatim a few weeks ago? Something else got stolen from him, or am I just imagining that, or did I watch it?
I don't remember that. Promo? Yeah, I don't remember.
But listen to this promo. I swear I remembered him using that verbiage before about people coming in their homes and stealing.
Didn't he have somebody come into his home and steal some stuff in the safe? Was this before or after all that?
This would have been after, I imagine. Well, I don't know.
I don't know either. No,
timelines are off.
My timeline's screwed up, so yeah.
He got pretty damn heated about it either way.
I thought it was a solid promo. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it was good. It was just a deja vu. I was just like, this sounds familiar, but I don't know. I may have watched this more recently than I realized.
He's probably used that same type of analogy like in the past, and it's just his blueprint or whatever. But I could feel it, man. Like he was getting fired up, and that is something that connects with the common man, if you will.
It does. And I thought it was funny. Lawler started count, did the count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the stupid fans in the crowd kept counting. He goes, like, what the hell are y'all doing? I was waiting for him to just say, why don't y'all shut up? But they kept counting along to 20, I think. So
yes, to 20. I was hoping they would keep going, and Lawler would have to say something because that was great, though. Absolutely great.
Y'all keep counting. We're gonna have a hot Memphis morning here. I'm gonna throw a fireball out.
There we go. He didn't. Yeah, I was waiting for him to say that in the promo, but he didn't.
Yeah, I was expecting at some point the vampire.
And I love this gear. I love the cape. I love everything. That's Jerry Lawler right there. Oh, I love that. Awesome.
He didn't come in with those willy-nilly single color tights either.
That's right, damn it.
The purple and the flower arrangement. Now, Flower King is proven to be a badass. It's about like the Zubaz. If Flower King comes in, you're fucked.
Yeah, whoever was making his gear got a sweet deal on some flower print because he was rocking some flowers on some gear, and then so did Tony Falk. So maybe they were getting their stuff made by the same person. I don't know.
And I know Brian always has the same color of stuff. You don't see the same print, but like you'll see Brian with some of that purple or Brian with some of that. You're like, yeah, they're getting it at the same place there. So.
Of course, Jerry's buying it for him. I'm sure, like, just make us both something. I'll come by and pay for it.
I wonder, like, who's the Andy Warhol of Memphis wrestling back then? Like, who's that first guy, because there was a point in the mid 80s to where it's, just bland tights, bland colors. And then it starts getting kind of spiced up a little bit. Like, who's that first guy? You know what? I think I'm going to do like neon pink or something. And then it's like everybody started doing crazy.
Uncle Danny was one of the first people as the Nightmares that they started coming out in multicolored. They'd have like, bright colored tights with different colored trunks over that. And then they started spray painting their hair, which I was never a fan of.
But it was so different, like looking like Rainbow Bright coming out there. Those Alabama people hated that.
And then Brian, does the old Jimmy Valiant thing. Valiant always had something on the back of his trunk. So
he had a kiss off.
Yeah, kiss off. I love that. Yeah. Valiant sold advertisement. He had FM 100 on the back of his
yes.
And so he was
and eventually he sold or gave that to some random like outlaw guy because I was watching some like deep South wrestling from the 90s and from like Mississippi. And there's a guy wearing those old FM 100 tights. And you can tell they're Jimmy's old tights because they look older than he is. And he's rocking them. And he turns around, they lock up. And I say on the back, FM 100 means music. Like he's wearing Jimmy's old tights. Jesus Christ. Like when Danny Morris was running around Corinth wearing all Doug's old gear that he had those like leopard colored, but they were like blue and red and all that stuff. He sold all those to Danny Morris, the perennial jobber of Corinth, Mississippi. And each week he come out, he bought some of it and JD McKay bought some of it. And you'd see Danny wearing Doug's old gear. It was so funny looking, but he was proud as hell of that stuff. It was the best he ever looked.
I was hoping that you were going to hit me with, he was the super dark patriot.
No, he didn't get those. He didn't get the dark patriot gear, unfortunately, because he definitely needed a mask on. Bless his heart. Danny Morris was
kind of like Uncle Danny and the Jaguar for Tiger Mask,
Yeah.
Well, Ken did a gimmick like that too. What was he? He was Tiger Mask or something.
Stray Cat is what he called it.
Stray Cat. Yeah.
And it was probably just all Uncle Danny's old shit, or
they probably.
I'm not sure which one. I think
traded it back and forth.
Yeah, and I was talking to my cousin this past holiday season or whatever, and like I didn't know this until years later because he never said anything. But like I always wondered, how did he figure out about Tiger Mask? Because that was really if you didn't read wrestling magazines at that point, then you wouldn't have known because he wasn't on TV and stuff. Well, I found out because like my cousin, he's saying, well, yeah, I used to watch all the New Japan stuff back when I was like 10 or whatever. And I was like, really? He said, yeah, Dad got all the tapes. I guess he got them from
cool
Cornette or whatever. But yeah, that's how Uncle Danny figured out about Tiger Mask and I guess ripped off the gimmick. Was he got all that crap? It was awesome stuff. But I guess I don't know if it was, like I said, Cornette or somebody that watched it and traded.
He would be the most likely suspect of the time.
Yeah, I would say that too, Gene, because Corny was getting everything. He was getting all the tapes and stuff so he could watch. And there was a tape that Meltzer put out. Meltzer was actually selling bootlegs at one time or trading, and it had It was 4 hours, and it had just all kinds of best stuff, New Japan stuff. I mean, all the Tiger Mask stuff, and even if you go back today and watch Tiger Mask, he's just an awe. I just go, oh,
Yeah.
he's so fast. He's so fast.
Well, it's not only that; it's like how fluid he is. It looks like it's supposed to be that way, not like he's trying to make it that way.
Y'all know
there's a lot of guys that like he was a wrestler doing moves like that, but there's a lot of guys.
Yeah, it didn't look like the
they're
lucha shit that
wrestlers.
looks so convoluted.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of guys say they're wrestlers, but they're just move doers, and you could see that it's all mechanical, thought out, plotted out. It's not as fast, not as fluid. But yeah, Tiger Mask. Anybody trying to do stuff like that, just study him and how he moves.
Oh yeah, just so him or Johnny Saint. Johnny Saint does a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah.
The story of Tiger Mask is, I know we're getting off on Tiger Mask, but he wrote a famous book in Japan. I think it's called Kayfabe, and he tells the story that he was not told that wrestling was a work until right before his first match.
Oh wow!
He thought it was a total shoot. Got into the ring. You know, he went on to do shoot wrestling and stuff like that. But yeah, he thought he was just devastated. He said he cried for days.
He went on to do shoot wrestling in the mask.
Yes, he did. He sure did.
Wow.
UWF. Yep.
That's crazy that he didn't get smart. But I mean, you know, the guy that trained me, they didn't smarten anybody up till you was almost through training because there were so many people that would quit. They didn't want everybody that passed through there for a couple of days to know shit, even in 97, you know, as much as it was known then. And yeah, they would, there was a guy that got trained that they didn't completely smarten up. And so when we were training, Sammy's always like, as soon as you take a bump, get up, you know, and they let that guy have his first match before they taught him about selling. And Tony Dabbs would tell the story this day that every time Tony would do a move to him, and in Ricky's head, he's hearing Sammy go, get up. So Tony hit him with every move he could ever think of, and Ricky would not stay down. He's just popping up. And then he gets ready to finish it, and he puts him in the corner, and the finish was going to be, he was going to whip him out of one corner into the other. Tony was going to charge in. He was going to do the old up and over, you know, into a sunset flip. So he backs Ricky in the corner, and he's like, take it home. And he shoots him in the corner, and Ricky just goes and hits the corner. And Tony runs over, and he doesn't do the spot, so Tony stiffs him with a forearm, take it home. And they go back and forth from corner to corner like 6 times. Finally, Tony just hooks him in a small package and pins him. And after it's over, we ask him, like, what were you doing? He's like, I didn't know what take it home means. I don't know. So he had to be retrained on how to sell and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, we got way off
we got way off in the weeds on that one.
So next up on the show, we get this week's edition of, hey, look, my dad knows a few moderately famous country music stars who will come on a wrestling show and call me fabulous to promote their music. And in this case, it's country music singer Ricky Van Shelton, who's not only there to promote his music, he's there to promote a children's book he wrote called Tales from a Duck Called Quacker. Look at Jeff's face. That says it all right there.
He said, I'll do whatever it takes to get this motherfucker on this show.
I call it horse shit. He didn't write that book, so he didn't. Quackity dack back book. What the fuck was that shit?
What the fuck are we doing?
It was so blatant product placement too. It's like, this is the agreement that we have. I'm not doing this. You're going to come on my bus and you're going to sit down and we're going to talk about my book first.
But I mean, even Jeff feels like he's got that Dave Brown, like, this is what we're doing. Like, okay.
And I thought it was funny that Ricky Van Shelton said that God told him to write the book.
Oh, yeah.
Tapped him on the head. Get like, to writing, boy.
Oh, it's like divine intervention or something. He told me to write this book. Like, oh, man.
Glad
Ricky,
to know God didn't have anything
buddy.
better to do that day than for you to write a book about a duck called Quacker. What the fuck? That's as much as we're even going to talk about that. I certainly don't have a clue.
Yo, that was fabulous. You see what I did there? So.
I mean, that's the hook to all these is like, all right, you can come on, you can promote your music, you can promote your tour, you can even promote a shitty children's book. But at some point, you've got to go up to Jeff and go, that's why they call you the fabulous one.
Yes.
And if you do that, we're good. So We've had Mickey Gilley. Now we've had Ricky Van Shelton. God knows who it's going to be next week. But we know it's gonna
to be fair, during '93, Mickey Gilley, he was an afterthought. He's somebody that teenagers would consider old at that point. But in 1993, Ricky Van Shelton was pretty big. Like I remember like my aunt,
I mean that's fair. I listen to country music at the time, so it's still just I don't see. I mean, if they had known that they were driving this character in the direction of what WWF ended up doing with him, but at the time, I just didn't see the correlation between the Fabulous One and all those country music people. But I guess that's mainly the only famous people that Jerry knew, so that's who he had to go with. So anyway, so now we're going to see, as you know, we always just double down on everybody. We get all their shit in at one time, so we go straight out of this country music Jeff Jarrett segment right into. We're going to see Jeff in action, but he stops off. Look at that outfit, man. We've really stepped it up here on Jeff's outfits in the last few weeks. And he's
fabulous one.
So he's sitting a step in the ring. He's going to take on the Intruder. You would assume
that's who broke into Jerry's house.
Enhancement guy.
It was who broke into Jerry's house.
Jeff could at least get a win over him before we get the inevitable run in, but nope, that's too much to ask as Jeff hits his Richard's favorite DDT and he goes for the cover. Here comes Bert Prentice and the Funky Bunch in the ring. They attack Jeff. We get the DQ as Vampire Warrior, Bergstrom, and Penrod all wail away on the Fabulous One. I'm wondering how long is it going to take Lawler to come out here? We know he's already in his gear, so he's not in the shower. He should be out here, right? But it doesn't matter because, well, guess who's back, folks? Check this out.
Hold him up. We've got to get some help with Jeff. Oh, boy. CW Bergstrom, Penrod, and it's the Moondogs. Here comes the help. The Moondogs and Richard Lee. Oh, boy, what do you know? Oh, Jarrett got the trash can, and the Moondogs and Richard Lee come out to help out the Fabulous One. I heard the whistle blowing, and I didn't believe my ears, but sure enough, it's the Moondogs.
I heard the whistle blowing. Jesus Christ.
And I thought surely they wouldn't be back this soon.
Woo, woo. I guess they saw those gates and they said they could actually make some money. So,
you know, I don't think they've been gone long enough for everyone. I mean, the studio audience seemed pretty excited to see them. I don't know if anybody's longing for them enough to care. I don't know. I wasn't expecting them to be back this soon. I mean, the Moondogs always come back. They're like Jason Voorhees. They're never, they're never gone. But I really wasn't. I was genuinely surprised when they come through the curtain. I'm like, shit, the Moondogs are back already? Like, not yet, but here they are. So, and spoiler alert, BT, I'm going to step on your gimmick.
Shit.
We're not done seeing the Moondogs and Jeff Jarrett for this episode.
Really?
Holy. They go to a commercial break, and we're going to do something we've never done on here before, but we're going to check out one of the commercials they showed during the commercial break because I thought this was actually kind of fun, and it ties into a theme of the show here.
This is Jerry the King Lawler inviting you to the battle of good versus evil. We're breaking out of the ring and taking it to the diamond. Friday night, July 30th is TV5 night at Chick. Starting at 6:30 with Lawler's Army in a game of no-holds-barred softball with special umpire Max Patkin, the Clown Prince of Baseball. Then at 7:15, the Chicks take the field, or what's left of it, against the Nashville Express. Hey, what do you think you're doing?
I'm stealing third base.
I'm sorry, that's good stuff. I mean,
I loved it, and Lawler's so good at those commercials, man.
Yeah.
He can sell anything: blindness, baseball, fireworks, carpet cleaning, whatever. He's a true salesman.
Absolutely, and Brian did great there as well. So when we come back from that break, Dave and Corey run down the card for Monday night, and we'll wait until later in the show, like we normally do, to go over the card. But I did want to go ahead because I feel like this will be a talking point later in the show. Before we get to the whole will you or won't you go to the Coliseum portion of the show. So BT, don't jump up and announce.
Just so y'all know,
whether or not you would go. But Eddie Marlin comes out in the middle of this and says that there's been a match added to the card for Monday night. Brian Christopher versus Gentleman Chris Adams. With the wild card being, will it be Brian Christopher with Miss Simpson, or will it be Chris Adams with Tony Adams? Which I think that's a fun way to add suspense to this match and make me want to buy a ticket to go see. And they even made the graphic a better name with both guys with a question mark. I don't know, man. That just stood out to me as being a pretty good way to promote this. And it's only in Memphis, though, could you go from a guy who strolled in, supposedly, as far as the fans know, this guy strolled in off the street. He doesn't work for the company. He's this, lady's either husband or ex-husband. As far as he's saying, it's his current wife. And he strolls in. He doesn't work there. He really has no right to be out in the studio. He's harassing this poor woman on TV. And now he's booked into a match on Monday night. And she may be in his corner, even though she wanted nothing to do with him earlier. She looked scared out of her mind, like he was fixing to physically assault her on live TV. But yet, now we're teasing, she might be in his corner. I don't know. That's his old lady. So, I don't know. I thought we'd go ahead and bring that up at this point, because to me, that was really one of the selling points of the card. I think it's a really interesting way to present that. I thought they capitalized on that really well. So next up, we hear from Bert Prentice and the gang. And this was your standard Bert Prentice promo. And nothing wrong with it, but we saw a lot of Bert last week. However, the thing that stood out to me about this promo in particular was this is the first time we ever heard from Melvin Penrod Jr. He cut a little bit of a promo in the middle of this, so let's hear what that sounded like.
From you idiots.
You want to use boards and fight off bullies all my life, and you're not accept no fights on with boards, grab kids, whatever.
Jeff Jarrett, I'm real disappointed.
Oh, I love it. Love it.
That's exactly what I expected him to sound like, right? I mean,
it's perfect.
Somebody stole his glasses this week. He didn't have his glasses on, which was kind of off-putting. But no,
he got an introduction to the Moondogs too. He had a board over his head. He had I know he got a chair a couple times, but it didn't look real hard. But that board broke, but it was probably thin enough to break. But yeah, he got an intro to the Moondogs there.
But
he sure did.
It's so perfect, man. Like this guy is playing this character to the T, getting every ounce of juice. Awesome. He's squeezing that orange, man, getting every ounce of it out of it. And he references, I've been fighting bullies off all my life. That is so perfect for this character.
It is. And I hate that our friend Richard does not concur with us. Like, we're all such fans of this character, and Richard shits on it when it says he doesn't get it. He doesn't like him.
He's like, I hate little pieces of shit like him. I'd have beat him up.
I don't know. I feel like he's there may be a little bit of jealousy there, because he showed us when we were looking through some of those pictures on the post show on our post show one day. He was like, "See, that was me. I was Melvin Penrod." So I think maybe he's upset. It's a mirror. That Corey Macklin wouldn't push his Blitz character, but yet here's Melvin Penrod living his dream. But I don't know. He's not here.
I can see Melvin doing the old, I'm not a crybaby at ringside and stuff. He's just built for that,
I get Richard's complaint about him, turning into a monster in the ring. That maybe, I don't know. It's counterproductive. I kind of like it too, but I can see the argument he's making. But there's so much stuff you can do with this character, and again, it justifies you having a principal character. What the hell do you do with a high school principal character if you don't have this student to play off of? So it gives meaning to all of it.
The thing about that whole him turning into a monster stuff, that's why he's a heel. Like, he's mentally unstable, and that's why he's a heel in the first place, because he's portraying he's a good guy and he's just a student on one hand, and then he's like this freaking monster that'll murder for the principal. All he's got to do is, I'm his A student, I'll do whatever. It's perfect.
I love it. I do. I just love it.
I think it's one of the best things they've come up with since we've been watching so far, especially like gimmicks. It's just a perfect a perfect accompaniment to the principal. So Bert talks for a couple more minutes until Jeff Jarrett and the Moondogs come running out and chase them off, of course. And then Jarrett cuts a promo, followed by Richard Lee, who proceeds to hold up a 2x4 and make some really clever analogies, using the 2x4 to call himself the chairman of the board, and the Moondogs are his board of directors.
I get it. I get it now.
Good stuff from our old pal Richard Lee. Not our pal Richard Lee that's off cruising, but
the real Richard Lee.
Yeah,
so are my eyes deceiving me, or is Larry Latham not here and they just
I didn't think that was
maybe
Larry
that's not
either.
Larry. I was thinking it was until BT kept questioning it, and then when they just came out in that clip, I'm like, well, fuck, maybe that's not Larry. But they called him Spot and Cujo on the one thing I looked at.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think that was Larry, because the one guy that's got the stringy hair, totally different face. Because I rewound it watching it. I'm like,
I did the same thing. Yeah.
You know, it works.
I will get to the bottom of this before next week's show, and we will get to the root of this Moondog controversy here. Because you may be right, that may not be Moondog Spot, which is weird because very rarely did you ever have a combination of Moondogs come in that one of them wasn't Spot. But the one's definitely Cujo, Lanny Keene, and if that's not Larry, then it would have to be Smithson, I guess, maybe from Nashville.
Bill Smithson, maybe. Yeah.
All right, we'll do some following up. We won't get too bogged down in that right now. So after this, when they announced the matches for Monday night, there was randomly, or at least it felt random to me, a match. Bert Prentice versus photographer Jimmy Suzuki. And I'm thinking, where the hell did this come from? I mean, granted, we've set a precedent in the past that Jimmy Suzuki would get involved. Back in 85, Randy Savage beat the hell out of him, juiced him in the studio, and he was a pretty young guy then. So now, at this point, they go back and they show us Bert Prentice beating up Jimmy Suzuki during one of last week's matches is what set this up. And I'm always amused. I think one of you guys mentioned it, or maybe Richard mentioned it, but somebody pointed it out. Now I can't help but really get hung up on it every time they do it. USWA always states people's job title, for lack of a better phrase, when they talk about them being in a match, if they aren't a wrestler. It's referee Frank Morrell.
Yeah, I was talking about that last week. Referee Frank Morrell gets in, yeah. Photographer.
And I don't
Jimmy
think it really
Suzuki.
does them any favors, you know. Like, why point out that we've got two referees wrestling in the ring? Because I feel like now, I mean, we could end up seeing, you know, referee Paul Navers versus hot dog vendor Delbert Jenkins or some shit. You know, I mean, I don't know. But it's very strange, but. Anyway, so we get a promo from Jimmy Suzuki, which brings Bert out, and Bert bars Jimmy Suzuki from all USWA events, which causes Suzuki to call Bert a fat sissy. A fight ensues, which brings out Warrior, Bergstrom, and Penrod, and of course that brings out Jeff Jarrett and the Moondogs for their third appearance today, and they clean house. And we've thoroughly set up this 6-man tag match, I believe.
Hey, I'm not kidding here. If you watch Jimmy Suzuki, he's had some kind of martial arts training. I know y'all think I'm going to be racist or something, but watch those chops and stuff that he does. And he blocks a couple of those things that Bert sends to him. So I'm just like, yeah, he probably really – Suzuki, I've met him a couple of times. Super nice guy. Actually, one of my Facebook friends. But, yeah. I marked out for him when I first met him because of the Savage angle. So good guy, real nice guy.
Yeah. I guess him and Bert had to have practiced it in the back to make it flow good because it moved pretty quickly.
It did. Yeah.
I rewound it just to see if he really hit him. I was like, wow, that looked good. He doesn't do this every day. It was good.
Yeah, it was definitely a martial arts.
He didn't lie either. At the time, Japan wrestling was probably better than what was going on. But he said Japanese wrestling is better because of Bert's here. You know, they made He had to say that.
That sissy.
That's sissy.
So, just in case you thought you weren't getting it this week, Jerry Lawler comes back out for his weekly softball update. You can go back and watch the episode if you want to know what that's all about. I won't recap that for you. But then we see how Brian Christopher, Miss Simpson, and referee Paul Neighbors won their 6-person mixed tag team match last week when Brian Christopher hit referee Frank Morrell with something of a foreign object, allowing referee Paul Neighbors to get the pin. I love that Frank Morrell is out there dressed exactly like Lawler. Like, you got the referee wearing the same kind of gear like Lawler wears, but not as colorful. Frank's still wearing the same shit he was wearing in the 70s.
That was a spoiler gear, I think. I said that last week, but I think that's up. That's a wrong picture.
Up, but that came up randomly. But anyway, so before we move on, we got to hear. Let's check this out
right here. Well, standing with me, I guess you've noticed, is referee Paul Neighbors. Paul?
Yeah, what is this deal you got Frank Morrell against me?
Well, I don't have Frank Morrell against you. The promotion has booked Frank Morrell against you. I think all the wrestling fans understand why. I would have thought you would.
Well, Frank, I want to get in the ring with an 82-year-old senile referee who can't even count. Have you seen him in the ring? He knows how to count to 3. I'll give him that much credit.
Well, he just did it, yeah.
Well, I know, but he goes 1, 2, and he stopped. He's senile. He goes down for the count. 1, 2, all these goofy people start hollering, and he gets up and he goes, he what? Huh? I can't hear it. What? He is old. He's retarded. He's decrepit. If he shows up, the man...
Paul, listen, I don't want to hear any more of that insult. I don't
want to hear any more of that insult. You can see Corey, he's really pissed back there. He's,
That is Dave Brown's trigger word.
It is his trigger word, retard, yeah.
Dude, Scott Bowden figured that out. And then this was before that, so yeah.
Yeah.
And he used to get, when Tojo would say it too, he would get uptight, but he knows Tojo would kick his ass. So he didn't say
He called
anything.
him Morrell, too. Oh, Frank Morrell.
Frank Morrell.
So where are you at, BT? Or have you come around to liking the referee Paul Neighbors angle?
No.
Well, to be fair, I called Paul Neighbors and I said, well, what do you think about BT?
He is old. He's retarded. He's decrepit.
And I cut him right there. I hung up on him. I said, look, I'm not going to listen to that kind of thing.
That's right, because you're my best friend.
Exactly. You're going to talk about my best friend like that right here on the phone. Apparently, he's been talking to somebody else we know, it seems like, but we won't get into that. So, match number 3 on the show, Jerry the King Lawler taking on Leon Downs, who we learned reading in the Observer a couple weeks ago that Leon is one of the recent trainees to come out of the training school. To me, he reminded me a lot of Ranger Ross, just as, his look, the black trunks and all that. But decent little TV match here. I'm sure he had to be very excited to one of his first TV appearances to be out here wrestling the King. You don't get much better than that, right? And ironically, the King manages to get an actual win here.
Well, it seemed like they were building this guy to be something, kind of like the Eron Hatchet deal, where let him get stuff in, and he was, yeah, with the crowd and all that, really working on it, and he got some moves in on the King too. And dude, Ranger Ross, that's who I was looking for. I kept saying, who does that guy look like? The slender, tall build. It's like if turned around, totally looked like Ranger Ross.
Yep. Hopefully he didn't go on to rob banks like Ranger Ross did, but we'll leave that to Jeff Gaylor as far as USWA guys who would go on to be bank robbers. But anyway, I got ahead of the game there. Actually, that Paul Neighbors interview should have been after the Jerry Lawler Leon Downs match, but I think it's okay. We'll manage to get through. But yeah, so Lawler got the win. So no run-ins, no DQs. Because as he's wrestling this guy, and like you said, he's getting a little bit of stuff in on Lawler. So I'm like, all right, well, they're wanting this guy to look like a threat. So obviously we're going to have, Vampire Warrior and everybody probably run in and attack Lawler, which will give us our 4th opportunity to see Jeff Jarrett and the Moondogs come out here and clear the ring. And we didn't get that. So I can't say I'm disappointed, but it seems like a missed opportunity in their eyes based on what they've been doing. But now we're ready for the main event, 6-man tag team match. PG-13 is back, and they're teamed up with the Disco Inferno, and they're going to be taking on Scott Taylor, Randy Rocket, and TD Steele. This is one of these things is not like the other situations where TD, he had been an enhancement guy, then he was just a straight up referee. Now all of a sudden he's back in a main event match here, teaming up with Scott Taylor and Randy Rocket, which tells me we may get a pinfall here, and we're pretty sure we know who it's going to be on when it happens. But some fun stuff before the match where, Disco comes out. He's waving his hands in the air the way PG-13 does. But then once we get in the ring, Disco shows Jamie and Wolfie how to do a disco move, and they all hit the disco.
And the crowd is eating it up, too.
I think we got a screenshot of that. So there they are coming out. They're waving their hands. And there they are. They all hit the disco pose right there. It's hard to tell because of the blurriness of the screenshot, but you get the point. Fun match here. I like the comment. The Disco Inferno and PG-13 is the 6-man team I needed and never realized. They had a good match here, and at the end, they get a win over, surprise, TD Steele. But they did cheat. They had Wolfie come off the top and hit him in the back of the head and then roll Jamie on top. So they didn't just straight up beat him. So
was that wrestler TD Steele, or they got the pin on referee TD Steele?
He didn't really do a lot of his, TD has been firing up and squaring off some of those boxing moves. He didn't get to do a lot of that here. So I think this was just referee TD Steele standing in for probably somebody who didn't show up today.
Is TD still with us? Is he? I wonder if he's around or anything. He would be someone fun to talk to.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know. I've looked around for him on Facebook and haven't found him, but I need to ask some people who would know. I feel like he's still with us. I hope. That would be, he would be great to interview. I would love to talk to TD Steele. All right, let's take our last podcast commercial break, and then we're going to take a look at the card for Monday night, guys, and then we're going to see what you guys think about it.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up and coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
All right. We want to thank our sponsors, especially WrestleCopia Podcast Network. We are proud to be a part of WrestleCopia. All kinds of great shows over on WrestleCopia, and a lot of new projects kicking off here in 2025, Josh. Some new things. One that I'm particularly interested in, and I should probably wait till BT gets back. His good buddy, Steve Crawford, is doing a show with Ray Russell where they're going back and going through 1977, covering the split between Jerry Jarrett and Nick Goulas. So
wow,
Steve has done a ton of research on it, and so they had the very first episodes coming up soon. I got to preview it through the Patreon, and yeah, these guys really did their homework, so it should be fun to check that out.
So are they going to be like interviewing certain wrestlers that were there during that time period, or is it just kind of like a research based and we'll give our opinion and kind of
mostly research based? They don't do a lot of interviews on that show. They have reached out to me and they want me to ask Tommy Rich some questions about it, which I'm going to do soon, and we'll at least get Tommy's perspective.
Not
so
to
BT,
kind of like bite off of their stuff or anything, but like I think that would be a cool idea to kind of like as a companion piece to see how many people that were actually around in this area during that time period and just see what their thought process was during it. You know what I mean?
And what their perception was of who was wrong and who was right. And,
I would love to hear Tommy Rich's like, what do I do? Because on the one hand, Jerry seems like the one that you would want to go with, but he's busting off, and Nick has been the steady money. No matter how much it was still steady for years and years and years. So what do you do?
So what we're talking about, BT had to step away for a moment. What we're talking about, BT, is we was talking about our, being a part of WrestleCopia Podcast Network. A new show is starting up there with your buddy Steve Crawford. Along with Ray Russell, they're talking about 1977, and they're talking about the Jarrett and Goulas split. Deep dive.
Yeah, I reached out to Steve. I can't wait to hear that. Steve's really a smart guy, and I went to college with him, a college roommate. So, not roommate, but maybe it was in the Bert book. So that was a Freudian slip. Me and Steve's known each other for a long time. Met each other, I guess, in 91 or 92, something like that.
I heard you guys were in the crowd when David fought Goliath. And,
sure enough. He may have been.
And you guys were in college then, right?
Yeah, he could have been. He could have been in the crowd when Brandon Baxter and Randy Hales had that 5-star match too. I'm not sure.
Well, let's hope not. We don't need Steve getting heat and
5-star. Was it a 5-star?
Yep. Total
5. Well, all right, guys, let's take a look at the card for this Monday night and see what all this was building towards, and then we'll find out before BT. And good job on BT for not giving any hints to how he's going to vote on this today. So we're all in suspense to see whether he's going to go or whether he's going to stay. So let's
opening match of the night. PG-13 is going to be there, going against Scott Taylor and Randy Rocket, and that's just the opening match of the night.
Just the opener.
After that, you take Bert Prentice, put him in the ring against photographer Jimmy Suzuki. Yeah. Miss Texas will be going against the Disco Inferno. That's right, a mixed match coming up. Then referee Paul Neighbors against referee Frank Morrell. Then Jeff Jarrett against the Rock and Roll Phantom coming up this week. You got a super grudge match then coming that Eddie Marlin has just told you about. I'm not even sure if we have this one in a computer yet. Oh, it is right there. Brian Christopher going against Chris Adams. And as Eddie said, he doesn't know if it'll be Miss Simpson on Brian Christopher's corner or if it'll be Tony Adams in Chris Adams' corner. But count on action here. Brian Christopher against Chris Adams in the grudge match. Unified title then will be at stake. The Vampire Warrior, well, they've stolen the belt. Now he's going to see if he can win in the ring, and I tell you what, he's going to find that to be mighty difficult as he goes against the King, Jerry Lawler, with the unified title at stake. But that's not all. That is not all at all. Boy, you met him just a moment ago. Again, you heard the whistle. I heard it. I said, "Oh my goodness, could it be?" And it is. Richard Lee and the Moondogs are joining Jeff Jarrett to go against C.W. Bergstrom, Melvin Penrod. The Vampire Warrior, Bert Prentice, will be in their corner.
You know, you think you've officially seen the last of the Rock and Roll Phantom, and then
surprise, motherfucker!
There he is, having a match with Jeff Jarrett. It seems like every time he shows up, he's wrestling Jeff Jarrett. He must love wrestling Don Bass, I suppose. Which, I don't know, Don Bass is a good guy. All right, well, here it is. It's time to answer those all-important questions that I ask you every week. So we can start off with the one we always start off with. What was your least favorite part of today's show?
So mine has to be this just phantom, speaking of phantoms, this phantom insertion of PG-13 again. And them just showing up as bad guys whenever they clearly left as babies, and just the crowd was into it. You could see that it was working, and it's like this time period that they've been gone, they're trying to turn the thong wearers into their babyface guys, and that's, if you don't change the outfits, that's not going to work. And if you don't listen to the crowd, it's really not going to work. PG-13 is the team. Like, I don't understand the disconnect. If you're Jerry Jarrett or Eddie Marlin or whoever, can you not hear? That's what all the old timers tell you to do. Listen to the crowd. Listen to the crowd. They're the ones who are the judge. They will tell you if you're doing it right or wrong. And every single time PG-13 comes out here now, sea of screams. I like, if they're bad guys, they're you would figure they wouldn't sell as much merch and just wouldn't connect. That I don't understand it. But, knowing what moving forward, obviously that's going to change. But, yeah, it's just frustrating being here during this time period, hearing it, and then them not taking the bait.
Not to cut you off, BT, but I feel like you're not going to agree with Josh, because I hear that you're a big fan of phantom insertion. Most things.
You did read Bert's book, right?
I did.
My name. I'll get the page number if anybody. The thing that and that's only on the weekends, Gene. Only on the weekends.
Yeah, I forgot to add that.
I don't like the Paul Neighbors stuff, and I don't like the Jimmy Suzuki stuff. I'm not a fan, and a couple of things. I will admit that as a manager, I did do matches, which I should not have done. But I've done a chain match, I've done a barbed wire match, I've done stuff like that. But as a fan, I'm just not a fan of non-wrestlers. Now, if you get a celebrity that comes in, I don't really have a problem with that because you don't expect much from them. But I would like to hear are the fans getting into these matches with this with Jimmy Suzuki and Bert Prentice? The fans, Paul Neighbors and Frank Morrell, are we still doing this? Are they really wanting to see this? Or are they just trying to add matches to the Coliseum show? I don't know. I don't like it. Fat boy.
Yeah. Jimmy Suzuki, I think, was just a matter of like he was down there taking pictures, and they're like, "All right,
you want to do something?
We'll put him in something." But yeah, I do feel like maybe we're really stretching it on the referee Paul Neighbors versus referee Frank Morrell thing. But anyway, what was your most favorite part of this week's show?
Well, I know there's some talk about not really liking it or too soon, but when I heard that whistle, it's coming to destroy Melvin and the boys. Oh my God, I popped, man. I was like, yes, come out. And it was the good Moondogs, good guy Moondogs, but they had furniture with them, furniture and plunder, baby. And they tore them dudes up. Penrod he takes a great ass whipping. Like, you know, they just broke boards over a couple guys' heads. Trash can was involved. It was a great feeling. It was electric. Like, and that's the type of feeling that you want. Like, I love that type of stuff at just random house shows. That's what makes it worth being there. That feeling. It was a really intense moment. And PG-13, even though they just kind of was randomly inserted in there. And by the way, I forgot to mention in my hate rant that I did not like that it was supposed to be just them surprise coming back, but the way that they first got introduced again was them going out to break up a fight. You know, even, they don't say anything. It's just like, well, we're here. Let's help whoever. But yeah, both of them being back, I feel like our tag team division is moving in the right direction.
I thought the crowd really, we got a huge Moondog pop as soon as you heard the whistle. By the way, I stole that gimmick too. Coach BT always blew his whistle. He could blow. Let me just say. But my favorite thing was the Adams thing. You know, I think about 1993, where I was in my fandom of being I was actually working in the business, had been for a while, and I think I liked that angle more than I did the pop for the Moondogs because it felt real, and that's what I said earlier. It's one of those things that I always really liked about, and Lawler's talked about this again. There's really nothing off, you know, except saying Brian Christopher's your son. Nothing that you can't talk about. You know, they've talked about his mom, his all kinds of stuff. And so I really liked Adams just walking out. It looked cute. I mean, it looked like, hey, where the hell you been? What are you doing on television kind of thing? I liked it. That was my favorite part.
I'll agree with that just because it's fresh. Like, you know, you're like, oh, what's going to happen here? Is this really her husband? How's Brian going to handle this guy who, you know, if you're a wrestling fan, you've read magazines and stuff, you know who Chris Adams is, you know his reputation, you know he's a big star. So to me, that is a really cool. I agree that, okay, it's cool the Moondogs are back. They're a hell of a lot better babyface team to go against Penrod and Bergstrom than Well Done or Simply Divine. Absolutely. But I know what I'm getting there. These guys are going to come out. They're going to hit people with boards, and he's going to blow the fucking whistle, and it'll be more of the same. Out of 7 months of USWA, we've watched 1993. We watched 5 fucking months of this happening week in and week out. These guys come through the curtain and jumping people. It's just, I'm over it. I'm fucking over it. And so what I wonder is, did we not miss an opportunity to, as popular as they was when they left, now they've been away, if Jeff Jarrett's in distress, if PG-13 had charged the ring and start popping guys with them hubcaps, could that have elevated them sooner out of this opening match level, put them in a upper echelon here, made them a top babyface team alongside Jeff Jarrett, give them that rub, and have something that feels new and fresh, babyface, upper card, PG-13, rather than more of the same with the Moondogs, and now PG-13's back. They're in the opening match. We don't even really mention that they were gone. We certainly don't mention that they were baby faces before. They're just, like you say, they show up to make a save, or not even a save. They show up to break up a fight earlier, and now they're just out here again.
You
and
know,
the crowd loves them.
Yeah, I talked to Wolfie about this time period and why they left. And behind the scenes, you may be looking at Jarrett as the boss or Laura as the boss. They weren't reliable at the time because they didn't have a reliable transportation. So it might have been one of those things. Oh, they're going to make it to TV. Let's put them on. Let's put them on television. But are they? Yeah, they are at the Mid-South Coliseum to open the match. But until maybe one of those things where until they get. And I might be wrong. I mean, there might be an angle next week, whatever. But until they get that reliability again, they may not want to use them. So
realistically, that makes sense, and I get that. That the reason you got rid of them is they were unreliable, so you're not going to bring them back and move them up the car. I still think you should have brought them back as baby faces some kind of way.
I agree too. I mean, I would have loved to see them with Jarrett. That's that along with and I mean. Josh, you may know this, but what happened to Danny? I talked about this big time last week, but it's one of those things where Danny was real hot after that. And the PG-13, these are people that can be really new fresh baby faces that could be over. And we're still, like you said, bringing in the Moondogs, who are good for that. I love what Josh said because they're good for that initial pop.
Yeah.
But then you go with what Gene said. It's like after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you're like, oh, I'm tired of this shit again. So, it's just it's one of those things it feels like they have opportunity that we're seeing as fans that they're just not using,
And this may just be a transition of they realize like, okay, Dunn and King aren't really, working as baby faces. Let's bring the Moondogs in for a couple of weeks until we can transition into a better babyface team. But then again, we may be off the races of another 4 months of Moondog matches. I don't know. That remains to be seen. But we sure as hell got a lot of them on today's show. I do know that. So let's head on down to the Mid-South Coliseum, July 26, 1993. Say what you will, 1,200 people turn out to see this card. So we're staying up. We drew more people last week. We're keeping that. We thought maybe it was a fluke because it was on a Sunday. Maybe more people was able to come, but we're back on a Monday and we got 1,200 people. Opening match sees PG-13 defeat Scott Taylor and Randy Rocket. Second match, Jeff Jarrett beats the Rock and Roll Phantom. In the third match, photographer Jimmy Suzuki beat Bert Prentice via disqualification.
Why? Can you just not put him over? Jesus Christ.
Miss Texas beat. Now, last week, we spent a lot of time talking about how Disco Inferno is the intergender world champion. This week, we made no mention of it whatsoever. In fact, Disco was not out there for any of the Bert Prentice promos. He only showed up for the 6-man tag with PG-13, and there was no Bert Prentice. So Miss Texas beat Disco via disqualification in a match that wasn't for that intergender title. There was no mention of it. I don't know. In the fifth match, referee Frank Morrell beat referee Paul Neighbors via disqualification. So now we're falling back into our old pattern. We got 3 matches in a row, all ending in disqualification. Why could the photographer not beat Bert or Bert beat the photographer? Why could Miss Texas not beat Disco? I don't know. Why the fuck ain't Frank Morrell pin Paul Neighbors? I don't know, but we got 3 DQs. So then we lead into our match number 6. Brian Christopher fights Chris Adams to a double countout. It's their first match.
I like that. Yeah,
I'm not mad at that. We're just starting this feud. These results do not tell us anything about how Miss Simpson, Tony Adams, played into the finish. I'm sure we'll get clips next week. We'll see how that aspect of it played out. But again, not mad at it. This is the first match in a heated feud. You couldn't control it in a regular match. This leads to gimmick matches. Perfectly excusable, but it is a bit of a groan because we've just sat through 3 DQs and now we've got another non-finish. So again, like we've talked about in the past, if they would look at the big picture and go, hey, we don't need to do all these DQs because we've got to do this double count out with Brian and Chris Adams. So, hey, look, maybe we don't hit them with 3. Why not have Jeff Jarrett beat for Rock and Roll? I know you're probably trying to put some distance between his 2 matches. So fair enough. Speaking of, now here's a little bit of a surprise. The Vampire Warrior, C.W. Bergstrom, and Melvin Penrod Jr. defeated Jeff Jarrett. Oh, here's our answer right here. Jeff Jarrett, Moondog Spike, and Moondog Cujo. So that's not Larry Latham.
Spike.
That's Spike. That is Spike. That is Smithson. So I redeemed myself by at least figuring out who he was during the show. Yesterday I definitively told BT that I thought it was Larry Latham, and I was wrong. Then in the main event, Jerry the King Lawler pinned the Vampire Warrior. Was that a title match? I don't remember. Well, he's already the champion. So now it's just a matter of whether he got his belt back. Physically got his belt back. So 1,200 people. We're moving in the right direction. We've got Chris Adams in here. I feel like this is going to be a hot angle because people like drama, and Brian Christopher has been running around with this guy's wife now for weeks, and now he's here. And we know, he's here looking for his wife. So I feel like that's going to be maybe a top draw for him. And I also know, and I'm not going to spoil it like certain people on the screen right now would, but we got some pretty big names coming in from up north very soon. That's going to really shake things up and probably make for some fun times here in the USWA. So I know we went through kind of a rough patch there and felt like things are getting kind of cold, but here we are moving through July, almost into August, and things are starting to heat up. So I'm pretty excited about the potential of where things are going. How about y'all?
I mean, I like the Chris Adams deciding. Really, the way you would do this would be for her to go. What would you do? Go with her husband and then turn against him, or I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. And see, that's fun part too. I don't know what direction they're going. I don't watch ahead of time. And I believe if I was talking to my friends, this would have been the thing I talked about. Oh man, you wouldn't believe it. Chris Adams just walked on the set and started trying to get his wife back. So yeah, I hope they do something with this. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah. And I was a sad boy with PG-13 and the Moondogs being gone, and they both pop up on the same show. That is amazing. And yeah, moving forward, I hope that we can see the Moondogs just wrap those thongs around the throats of King and Dawn.
That's hot. Woo.
And just get them out of, make it to where they go wear their thongs elsewhere. Like I don't like that.
All right. Yeah.
In PG-13, we're about to see them blossom into what they will become, and it is a very great time in the USWA.
Absolutely. So, folks, there you have it. Make sure you join us next week to find out where this goes next and see. I am definitely interested. I haven't watched ahead, and my memory's terrible these days, so I have no clue where any of this is going. So I'm excited to sit down and watch next week's show to see how Miss Simpson figured into that match from this week, if she played her hand at all, or if we're still going to be trying to figure out who's she going to side with, Brian or Chris, her husband. Because we're not calling him ex-husband at this point. We're calling him her husband.
He made a point to say he put his hand up. He was wearing a wedding ring. And just so everybody knows, look, I'm married, but I'm not wearing a wedding ring because I got so much response to me being shirtless last week. So I need everyone to calm down about that. So,
and even though this drops on a Wednesday, this is recorded on the weekend, so everybody knows that you're not married on the weekend. It's all bets are off, son. It's Friday night
from my
till
friend
Sunday
Derek
at midnight.
King. Derek King says everything is fair on the weekend. So there we go. I kind of cleaned that one up, but yeah.
I was going to say, I thought it was. It's not gay. It's pro wrestling or something like that. But anyway, former professional wrestler. If they were putting
he's got one more match, guys. One more match.
Who's that against?
One more match. He's going to go against Simon. So it should be. They've been friends forever. They've feuded on and off for a long time in this area. So it actually makes sense. It'll be fun to see.
Well, all right. There you have it. Derek King is going to wrestle his retirement match against Simon over on a particular wrestling show we're not going to mention here because we don't want to get heat with anybody. But he's a big proponent of it. Hey, we don't want that. What do the kids say? We don't want that smoke. Is that what they say? I think.
That smoke.
So remember, folks, subscribe, rate, and review on the podcast platform of your choice. We would certainly appreciate it. Check out WrestleCopia.com for not just this show, not just Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich, but all sorts of great shows, including that new Memphis 1977 show with Ray Russell and Steve Crawford, which should be a good time. If you want to get T-shirts, hats, coffee mugs, anything you can imagine with the USWA podcast logo or just the USWA logo or any of the other fun stuff we've got over there, check out tinyurl.com/USWA podcast. Also, for Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich's podcast, check out DougGilbertPodcast.com. For all of Brian Tremmel's shenanigans, check out stspod.club. Is there anything in particular you got happening over there right now, Brian, that you want to plug?
Just the same old Shiznit Minute every day. We just released episode 903 and 904 Memphis Wrestling Review Show, and also we reviewed their awards. We have a review currently up of the Hall of Fame, Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. I can't think of anything else we got coming up. We're going to review Wrestle Kingdom, which just recently happened. And also, we always do, I think this is our 5th or 6th annual top wrestling stories of the year. So we're going to do that later on in the month. Fun stuff. January's busy. stspod.club. Join us.
And while you're on a roll, tell us, what can we expect this week on P3 Radio?
Oh, wow. I gave them 4 out of 5 hoots this week. And remember, P3 Radio is the podcast that always talks about videos, but never gives you the links or descriptions in the notes. So if you want to look for an old episode that there might be a bit in there, you'll never know. You'll just never know.
It's like a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
You'll find it, and you'll be glad you found it. Right?
Don't feel bad, because Josh and Richard can't find stuff from old episodes either. So it's a mystery to all of us.
Richard actually agreed to something Josh said that's it's not happened a lot in the history of P3 Radio. They talked about cigarette stains, the Dixie Cup versus the Solo Cup, which Richard had no idea what the
Richard had no fucking clue what a Dixie Cup was.
I have to admit
him.
Yep, I have to admit that I'm addicted to fake snuff. I just want y'all to know that. He brags. Richard,
do you use authentic Memol formula, or
I do.
is
I do.
just
Yeah.
concoction?
I wrote that down. I've been using that. Richard bragged about his Mexican vacation, which, we always hear about that. He also talked about counterfeiting in Mexico. I hate to tell that. I should have kayfabed that, but he did. We had some stories.
That should have been a Patreon thing.
Wild monkeys in Florida with chlamydia. They were singing Runaway. They also talked about feeding porch monkeys. I'm sorry, that's what they said. I didn't say that.
You can't say that on here either.
He calls
context. Come on.
Richard calls Wicked fan fiction, the movie Wicked fan fiction. Wrong, Richard. Wrong. Richard thinks a child is lying about going to a porn site. They talk about a skit about a PlayStation giveaway, and they talk about a stir-fry vegan strip club. And they actually Facebook stalked a stripper. So that was this week on P3 Radio. Remember, 4 out of 5 hoots. And if your review is shooting a shiznit, go to iTunes. I want you to give us 5 stars, but I want you to shit on us in the comments. Talk about us just as bad as you want to, but give us 5 stars. So there you go.
Well, I know a guy who will do that.
Good deal.
Hey, even on the weeks that BT can't actually do the whole show, you guys need to get him to come on here and give a preview for y'all's show, because, man, he jazzes it up, man. I
want to go listen right now.
just to get some context on some of these things he just said.
I love the show. I've been with them ever since the very first episode that they had Danny Davis on. And, Richard and Josh both reached out to me when they got started because I had been doing my podcast. So I've been with them for a long time, and they seem like if you go back and listen to the archives, you kind of get in on the inside jokes and stuff. I could see if you just jumped on now, you might be a little confused. But they seem like just 2 old friends, which they are, but they seem like they're my 2 old friends.
Yeah.
Just talking shit every week, and I get to sit in and listen to them and don't get to say anything to them at the time, but this is fun to do. But yeah, a big fan of that.
It surprises me you're willing to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the formula that we put out there. And that's whenever we get feedback, it's usually that. It's like, I feel like I'm sitting there with friends. I've had people tell me that I know you. I feel like I personally know you, and I don't fucking know you.
And Gene, they don't do politics, which almost every podcast, no matter, one of my favorite other podcasts where it seems like 2 old friends is a podcast called Who's Right. They sometimes get too political, and it just, they don't do politics. Any joke that I make about things that they're talking about, like Josh said, in content, that it's pretty much G-rated. Well, no, it's not G-rated. I'm sorry. I try to get people to listen to it. Yeah. Good
so
stuff,
there you go,
though.
folks. If you are a loser who has no friends and you want to at least have 2 friends that you can hang out with once a week, they're your guys.
Thanks
right
a lot,
Josh
Gene. You tell people I don't have any friends down.
I'm not saying it applies to you, but I'm just saying.
Well, it might.
You said if they go back to the beginning, and that's the thing, you'll have shit to listen to for the next I don't know how long, because there's
300 something episodes. What was that?
It's 300. It's maybe 87, something like that.
And they have done it every week. There's something that me and Gene talked about when we were doing podcasting that and I have done that, average of 2 a week for the last 7 years. And that's one of the things that when they started doing, I said, do it constant, be every week, put an episode out. And Gene, you've seen the stuff from doing that. People join it, they get on it. If you don't put out an episode for a couple of weeks, they're like, what the hell happened to that podcast? And then they just delete it, and it's not in the rotation anymore.
That's why all you guys are my heroes. Is y'all been doing that, and it pays off. And I've got a big project coming up, and I said something about how it was going to cut into time, and we may have to shorten this podcast. And I think Josh had said, well, if we need to put this on hold, I'm like, no, we're not. That's the one thing. That's I'm not really into like cheesy, like New Year's resolutions and shit like that. But my one resolution I had this year was that I'm following through on the shit that I've got going. This podcast, the Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich podcast, we're keeping it going, come hell or high water. I mean, because even Ray Russell was like, are y'all taking off for Christmas? Nope. We're going to keep going, because once you miss a week, it starts getting real easy. Like, hey, we can take off for this one, and the next thing you know, you're doing this shit sporadically, and everybody's giving up on you. So
we do a light month of July, we do a light month of November, but remember, we've been doing this for 7 years, and our audience knows that. Our audience, has built. We actually had the most audio plays we've ever had this past year, which, I do a lot of social media, so we have plays on social media, but it was really high. Then it kind of started going off for the last 2 years due to the fact that we were putting them on, Facebook and everywhere. But all of a sudden, everything started going right back up as the most audio plays, which was an excitement for me. I love it that we always do what they call in restaurant business positive comp. So we're better than we were last year. So I'm real happy with that.
That's all you can hope for, right? Is just keep building on and building on. And so, folks, you can check out USWApodcast.com for all the links related to this show. You can get the Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, everything, our Facebook groups, all that stuff's right there. Check it out. Go over there and subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Retro Wrestling Archive. There's a literal ton of old school wrestling there for you to check out. And again, you could listen to P3 Radio every day, literally every day for the next year, and not have to listen to the same episode twice.
And you can listen to Shooting the Shiznit for the next 3 years.
For 3 years.
Getting a new one. So there you go. What a
catalog. You can listen to Retro Wrestling Review for the next 30-something days and be good. So we're getting there, and we're working on it. All right, folks, we will catch you here again next week for another episode. Again, thank you, Brian Trammell, for sitting in with me and Josh.
Yes, sir.
As Richard is out sailing the seas, and he will return next week, and we will hear all about his fantastic ocean adventures down in Mexico. So until next week, I'm Gene Jackson for Josh Briley and the spoiler, BT. Thanks for listening.